Hi guys, I don't know if you can see me. This is my first time doing this webinar format, but my name is Leah. I'll be one of your chairs. Um, we're waiting on a couple of our other chairs to come on, Shravan and Nick, but they should be here in just a little bit. Um, I don't know if you guys have any specific questions or anything like that, but we can help answer that for you guys. Yeah. So this webinar should be about 45 minutes, and if you guys have any specific questions, then you can just put it in the chat. And so we have the background guide, but we also, if you guys have any specific questions, you can also ask us as the chairs, and we can help you guys through things. We have a wide range of people, from, people who are very experienced to people who have never really done crisis before. So we will help you guys through everything. So the webinar is supposed to be sort of an unstructured video. My other chair will be joining me soon. But if you guys, this is just supposed to be a very casual way. If you guys have any questions, that you can put it in the chat and meet each other. Or if you have questions specifically for the chair, this is just a way so that you guys can see us. I know there's a lot of empty space sort of in this video, but really it's whatever you guys want. Yeah, so can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Yeah, I'm not doing too much talking, but if you guys have any other questions, this is supposed to be, again, like an informal introduction, I guess. So we only have 4 viewers right now, but in case you weren't here in the beginning, I'm Leah. I'm a junior at Penn, and I'm studying public health and nutrition. And I'm also on the ILMUNC team here in Philly. So I am the chief of operations here and do a lot of the design work and stuff like that. And I did some Model UN in high school. Not as much with crisis, but I'm excited to help other people who don't have as much experience with crisis here. And then Chauvin, who will be joining us shortly, has a lot of experience with crisis, and he's actually the head of competitions here at Penn. And so he'll be here very shortly, and he has a ton of experience and did Model UN all through high school. And so he's very excited to be coming here as well. So yeah, and he's going to be here in just a little bit. So yeah, so to answer the first question, yeah, well, we will be having breaks throughout to give updates to the conflict, as well as updates that we decide in our sort of breakout sessions behind the scenes. And then for features of a crisis committee, do you mean like for this crisis committee in specifically, or just crisis committees in general? Because we can also, if you guys are interested or need more information, we can go over exactly how a crisis committee works, and we can do that once Strauch comes over, especially because he's very experienced with this. And then we can go through exactly what you guys can expect. But we will be running this just as a, you know, your typical crisis committee. Yeah, for sure. All right, sorry, I'm gonna wait for Shravan to come just a little bit, because I feel like he'll have a much better explanation than I will. Um, but don't worry, we got you. 1 second. Yeah, hang on 1 second. So we'll be here until about 11 or so. I know that we started a little bit late, so for every minute that we've started late, we're gonna stay here until the end, because I want to make sure that you guys get a full 45 minutes, hopefully with both of us chairs. And then, so for representing Spain in the Republican Committee, um, um, I would say that it's better to just do um, general research, because things are going to be coming up. Since it's a crisis committee, things are going to be coming up all the time, um, that like in all different situations. So you don't necessarily have to. I would make sure that you understand Spain's position, but since it's crisis, things are going to be changing in real time. Um, I'm not sure if you mean basing your research like on, if you mean more on a specific like timeline or in on a specific country, but generally it's better to have. Yes, sorry, this is 11 Eastern Standard Time. Currently it's 10:30 here, so we'll be here for another probably half an hour or so. Um, but yeah, in general, things in crisis will be changing in real time, and we're going to be making up simulations as we go along, sort of. So it's better to have general research and a general background, but always keeping your country in mind. So I've seen a little bit from the chat so far, but have what sort of experience do you guys have with Model UN? No worries about the typos. So I think this was something that Shravan decides, but I believe that we're going to be having the committees in separate rooms, and then we might have, I believe, actually, no, I think we'll be having the same room, and then the people who are going to be deciding, like, sort of the timelines of or what's going on, will be separated. But yeah, no, I know it can be a lot, but it's to be in your first conference, but it'll be fun. So. And my other chair, Nick, will be here in just a minute as well. And yeah, so you hopefully get to meet both of us today, or all three of us today. yeah, if you guys, let me send this to you guys. I know that, I'm sorry that my 2 other chairs have not gotten here yet, but I'll send you guys my email for an additional questions. If you're not, oh, that's not. So it's leahsp@sas.upenn.edu. I don't know why it keeps going back, but yeah, if you guys have any questions afterwards, you guys can email me at any time, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. We will be starting, sorry, I just realized, we're going to be starting this committee in 1936. And we wrote this on, you can see this on the ILMUNC India page as well, ilmuncindia.com/committee/Republicans. And that's where we have the committee summary, and we also have the background guides, which have a lot of more information as well. I really enjoy UPenn. If you guys are interested in applying to UPenn or going or learning anything more about UPenn, we can all answer a lot of questions about that as well. Yeah, whether you're interested in business or IR, or international relations, Penn has a lot of different things for you. There's also a lot of good opportunities to do Model UN if you want to do Model UN in college as well. And then I'd say people at Penn are very involved in different clubs. So I'm currently in 5 classes, and definitely have time, I want to make time to being a MUN chair. A lot of the work is done over the summer. Like, we wrote the background guides and stuff over the summer, so it's very manageable. And then it's very easy to be involved in a bunch of different clubs and still stay on top of all your classes. I think the most students take 5 classes, but the range is between 4 and 6. The journalism program, I'm not entirely sure. I think that might be a grad school program. Undergraduates, I don't know any undergraduates in journalism. I don't think that's a major. I do have a few friends who are doing an English major, which, if you're interested in just writing, the English programs at Penn are really good. and I'm actually taking I'm taking an English class right now that's actually about journalism and food, but that's in the English department, not in the journalism department. Um, so yeah, if you're interested in journalism, I don't know if I would go to Penn specifically for journalism, but if you're interested in English and international relations and things like that, you can definitely double major. And yeah, and there's a lot of opportunities to work for the newspaper and stuff like that here. The newspaper, the Daily Pennsylvanian, is pretty big. So if you're interested in joining that, you can definitely do that as well. In for Ivy League MUNs, I guess you mean just ILMUNCs. So I actually, in high school, I never attended any ILMUNCs. I am from Seattle, so the other side of the country, and so we don't have ILMUNC over there. But I did do Model UN in the first half of high school, and then I moved schools, and we didn't have Model UN there. But then here at Penn, I help organize the ILMUNC in Philadelphia, and so that's at the end of January. And so for that, I'm the Chief Operations Officer. So I help do a lot of design work and dealing with hotel logistics and stuff like that. So I'm not actually a chair for that, but I just help with a lot of the logistics and organizing of everything. And then my other two chairs, Nick, who will be here hopefully really soon, he also helped with the ILMUNC in Philadelphia last year, and with a lot of the organization of it and stuff like that. And then Shravan, who will be here soon as well, he's never been on ILMUNC, but he is very involved in competing at college level Model UN conferences. So, for example, I think he went to Columbia or Georgetown, I think, a couple weeks ago. And so he's very involved in competing over the weekends and stuff like that with different college students at different colleges over around the East Coast. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in remaining involved in Model UN in college, Penn and a lot of different East Coast schools in the US have a ton of different ways that you can get involved in Model UN, whether on the planning side of the conference, or if you're interested in chairing, or if you're interested in competing. There's a lot of opportunities to get involved there. All right, 1 second. I think the other chair is here. I will be right back. 1 moment. If you could stay here, I'll bring my laptop out. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of them have questions. So first, if you could just introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Nicholas. I'm going to be one of your senior staffers for the conference. I'm very happy to meet you, and I'm looking forward to answering any more of your questions that Leah hasn't answered already.
Yeah, so I think some of them have questions about just like if you could walk through the whole process of crisis and
Of
like
course.
what it means, and if you have any additional tips for competing.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that a lot of you probably haven't done crisis before. I was very much in the same boat when I came to college. I'd never done a crisis committee. I come from Germany in Europe, and we had never done something like that before. So just to walk you through it, crisis is one of the best types of committees you can ever do, and that's because you really have the ability to tailor the way committee flows based off of what you and the rest of the committee wants. So crisis is like any normal committee in that you have a very small number of people in a room. You're debating different topics, but the real difference comes in the crisis side. And the crisis side is where you have the out of room style debate where you are actually writing crisis notes to your crisis director. So you are a person or a country, normally in crisis committees, and you therefore have different. You have a life. You have different portfolio powers, as per se. So let's say I am the prime minister of Ethiopia. Now I can use my crisis in order to try and increase the number of troops I have, in order to try and backstab delegates, try and help with the current situation that's going on. So to give you another example, let's say we're talking about the Ethiopia. We're talking about the issue in South Sudan. So I, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, can write a note to my minister or my chief of intelligence asking him to start gathering intelligence information or to start collecting troops in order to send them on reconnaissance missions, etc., etc. You can do anything in crisis pretty much as long as you lay out in a specific way what you want to do, how you want to do it, and why you're going to do it. And that's a very good way of going about it. As long as you are able to justify your actions and build up your crisis arc per se, the crisis director will most likely let you move committee forward, and then from your different crisis notes, you'll be having updates in committee that come in and really influence committee. So let's say I'm talking about Ethiopia and South Sudan. I'm the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. I write to my Chief of Intelligence, start having reconnaissance missions happen. I build up my intelligence forces slowly but surely. I start to tap into the South Sudanese infrastructure, and this all starts to lead to me planning an assassination attempt on the current leader of South Sudan. A crisis update might come in and say that the leader of South Sudan was assassinated. No one will know it was because of you. You want to keep that secret, obviously, but you're going to be the one who's really influencing a lot of committee. I hope this gives you kind of an idea of what crisis is, and I'm happy to answer any more questions you might have.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then, so we also had a previous question about like if you have any extra tips on how to do research for crisis committees, especially since things are changing all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So when it comes to research, you really want to get a good background of the topic, understanding where you're coming in, reading the background guide that we wrote, because that's really a good starting point. So, understanding the issues, understanding where you're coming from, understanding your position, and from there, that starting point, you're going to be springboarding off of and moving into a completely different direction during committee. but you'll always have that starting point to reflect on. And therefore, I'd say read the background guide, do as much research as you can about the issue, because you're going to be writing directives on the topic. You're going to be trying to come up with solutions regardless of what happens in crisis. But then, even when it comes to crisis, I would say make sure you, as whatever character you are, have a very clear understanding of what you want to happen in committee and how you want it to happen um, outside of the room. So with your crisis notes, and if you can do that, then no matter what happens, you can always use one of your strategies in order to get what you want done. And MUN is about constantly adapting, constantly shifting and changing to how committee is flowing, and that's something that's very different from other styles of debate, and that's something that makes MUN so unique and amazing. But I know all of you are going to be able to think on your feet and get some really good constructive debate done, and I look forward to seeing all of that happen in committee.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think if there are any other like really pressing questions. I don't know. I guess we could just.
Yeah, scroll up and see. I love all the questions you guys have. This is great.
Let's see. I don't know if you have like good answers for like.
Okay. Yeah.
Questions about like, I don't know, just I guess well, you sort of answered this before, but more about like how a crisis committee progresses and evolves. But a lot of it is sort of, I don't know, unpredictable.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what's probably going to happen is you're going to come in, you have the set topics, you're going to choose a topic, vote on it, decide what to start debating. You're going to start debating, and then your crisis director, Shravan Balaji, will have a crisis for you. Something will have happened. Once again, let's use the hypothetical situation of Ethiopia and South Sudan. You're talking about the South Sudan issue, the political situation right there, and your crisis director comes in after the first 20 minutes and says, something has just happened. The president has been assassinated, and forget anything about this being because of crisis. This has nothing to do with any delegate. Director comes in and says the president has been assassinated. That's the crisis update. From there, you as a committee are going to have to come to solutions about how to deal with it. So you're going to be writing directives. You're going to be debating on it. You're going to have moderated caucuses that discuss the best way to move forward in terms of dealing with this power vacuum that is emerging from this very unstable region. And what you're going to be doing as an individual delegate is what a really good delegate would do is, number one, speak about the current crisis and how you think it should be solved. Number two, use what you've said in order to move forward with committee and start writing directives. And number three, then also writing in crisis to try and have as much impact as possible. I just got one more question about elaborating more on the figures that play a large role in the crisis. So I'm trying to dissect the question a little bit. And you're talking about the figures that play a large role in the crisis, and this is the Republican committee, the ones that were mentioned in the background guide. I just want to, if you could type in, do you mean in terms of you as a character, and which ones have a large role in the crisis, or specifically the people in the background guide that aren't in the committee? Because if you're asking about the individual figures in the committee that have a larger role in the crisis, that would be off view. So once you get into committee, you will have all of you, every single person will have the ability to play a role in the crisis, no matter who you are, whatever your character is. You can have an impact, and that's important to point out. In terms of people that were responsible for the crisis in the first place, I mean, the background guide, I think, lays it out in terms of how the situation emerged and what led to that. So okay, so yes, me as a character figure. Yeah. Um, when you say on the figures that play a large role in the crisis, do you mean like how you can have an impact? Because if so, I guess once again I'd say no matter who you are, whatever character you are, you can always create a backstory for yourself. Create some sort of storyline that allows you to have the ability to move crisis forward by using your different strategies that you come up with, whether it be through reconnaissance, through creating a elaborate backstory in terms of someone you knew in college and how he's now ingrained in the political situation in South Sudan and he's able to help distribute propaganda, something like that. All of that plays a role, and you can create those backstories, um, which move you forward. So you, as a character, as a figure, um, you can play a role in Crisis without a doubt. There's nothing that stops anybody. I was actually just last week at an MUN competition in New Haven, and we were talking about Russia and China cybersecurity, and I was an African nation. And I was in a very similar position to, I'm sure some of you might be, in terms of trying to figure out how my character would be able to have a role in cybersecurity with Crisis. My nation had no internet infrastructure, had no cybersecurity capabilities, and really wasn't in a good position to influence Russian Chinese politics. Um, but still worked. I've got one more question going off of that about if you're the delegate of Spain, will you be representing the Republican views? Um, to answer that question, I don't want to give it away. I want to say that you, as delegate of Spain, so read through your background guide, and from that, try to figure out whether your delegation, I guess representative of Spain, would be aligning yourself with the Republican views. That should be pretty straightforward to figure out. Of course, going off of that, you don't have to necessarily follow along with what the views of um, your delegation officially are. If you, in Crisis, for example, create a backstory that is contrary to that, so you can potentially be someone. Your delegate could be a counterinsurgent, someone who is a double agent, etc. But in committee, you still want to put forward the views of your delegation. So I think, yeah, to get the answer to that, I don't want to give it away. Read the background guide on that. Do your own research if necessary, because a lot of external research always helps. And yeah, I think you'll be able to figure out how best to represent your delegation.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that, I think the background guide is a really great starting point that gives an introduction if you have no background whatsoever in the topic. But as Nick was saying, this is something, it's sort of like it's just a starting point. So you can really be creative with it and go in whatever direction you think is best. The background guide is just something that we wrote so that you can have sort of a basic background on it. But your research and your sort of creative direction is really what's important here.
Yeah. We just got one more question about Crisis. So to answer the question, it is, as you understand, you change your positions or actions as per the updates with the new crises. Um, okay, I think I understand what you're asking, and to answer that, you as a delegate come in, you have an idea of what you want, what values you align yourself with, what you believe, what you want done in committee. No matter what happens, that's always going to be the same. However, as crisis updates come in, you're going to be changing, of course, how you act in terms of what you're discussing, how you're moving forward. If a crisis update comes in and someone's been killed, or there's been troop movement in front of some sort of border, or something else has happened, you are going to be changing your actions in that you as a delegate are going to be shifting your focus away from whatever issue we were discussing before to the current issue at hand. In terms of your position, if it's something to do with, I don't know, troop movement in between different countries, and you as a delegate have a very particular stance on that, then of course you'd be changing your position on that particular crisis update, and you can make that known to committee. And for example, let's use the hypothetical of Russia and Ukraine. Let's say you are a country that believes very strongly in Ukrainian sovereignty and don't think what's happening in Crimea is good. You might be talking about an issue such as cybersecurity, and you have a strong position on that. You are taking certain actions in committee to deal with that issue. Crisis update comes in and says Russia has moved troops into Crimea and into eastern Ukraine. What are you gonna do? And then you as a delegate are gonna shift your focus. You're gonna say, okay, we need to talk about this issue. It's pressing. It's current. We need to deal with it. The delegate of, let's say, Spain, firmly believes in sovereignty and the ability of Ukrainian citizens to make their own choices about who governs them. This is impacting the national sovereignty in a detrimental way. We cannot have this. You're going to try to create a directive to change that. I hope that answers your question. In terms of, once again, I want to take a slight shift towards the crisis side, which is that in room, in committee, you have your position, you have what you want. When it comes to the crisis notes, when a new crisis comes out, you're going to be changing your crisis notes to deal potentially with that current situation. And you're going to be shifting the focus a little bit as well. So your actions in crisis might differ too. I think that probably gives you an overview of how to go about doing it. I know all of you are going to do great when we actually get into committee. I know it's hard to see all different scenarios right now when we still haven't started the conference yet, and there's so much that still has to happen before we are all together, but it's going to be good. Yeah. And question about position paper. Do you anything you can say about that?
Not specific. I feel like Shravan might have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Better things, yeah.
Yeah.
And I gave out my email as well, so maybe I can. If you email me specifically, then I can send you some example ones.
Yeah.
Do you have experience writing position papers for crisis?
Yeah. So actually, I wrote position papers before. In terms of structuring a position paper, don't stress out about it. It's not as hard as it might seem. In general and committee, it's pretty much the same thing. You are coming in as a delegate. You have, let's say, the delegate of Spain. You've done your background guide research. You've done your own research going off of that, and you have a good idea of what Spain's view is on the current issue. Your position paper is exactly that. It's a paper about your position, about what you as delegate of Spain believes. I start out, structuring it, talking about how important the committee is, why delegate of Spain feels that it's such an important issue. Then going into how delegate of Spain, why delegate of Spain feel that the issue is relevant and what steps need to be taken to deal with it. And then also potentially any ideas that delegate of Spain has in terms of dealing with that situation and what potential steps can be taken to solve the issue in committee. So it's good for you. It's good for us to read, so we can have an idea of where you're coming from, what you believe, what your position is. But honestly, it's very, very helpful for you as delegate to understand going in what your position is, what you want, what you think about the topic, and how you want committee to go. It was always very useful for me in high school to be able to structure my thoughts and really have an organized idea of what I, as a country, wanted from the committee. And if I never got a position paper, I probably wouldn't have thought about it as much. So I'm glad I had to do it. I know it can be a bit of extra work, but it would definitely pay off in the long run.
So it's 11:08 here, so I think that we're going to wrap up. But if you guys have any other questions for us, you can always email us, and we'll get back right away. Yeah, we're here for you guys. If you have any questions at all about committee or even about Penn or anything unrelated. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. We're so excited for conference, and we'll see you in less than a month, which is crazy.
It is
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Um,
gonna be good.
yeah.